It's me, Shinju. Yes, little baby girl. And welcome back to me talking to empty air about making miniatures. Yay! Well, I showed this last week. It's basically a grid bloom of what miniatures I have and have not done. No, Ralph. No. And so, say hello to Ralph, everyone. He wants to say hello to you. Yes. Is that what you wanted? Is that what you wanted, little furball? Mm-hmm. No. Get on down. Good boy. Now, like I was trying to say before I was interrupted by a feline investigator, this chart, this grid, is basic character types. I've left off some of the races that are in the player's handbook, and pretty much all of the ones that aren't. And I've condensed Sorcerer and Wizard. I'm even tempted in condensing Warlock into them too. But this is basically what I got right now. Now, as you can see, there are still no Paladins, Warlocks, or Bards. We can drop Warlock because, like I said, I'm planning on condensing it into Sorcerer and Wizard. But we also still have no Gnomes. So, that means that this week I can either do a Gnome Bard or a Gnome Paladin. Bard. Yeah. Here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to make that little, we're going to put a little green dot in that spot once after I log off and show that I'm done. But as for now, it's going to be soon time to get in and start posing our figure and getting his props ready. So, we're going to pop over to here, and you'll see that I'm sitting here with, my base figure in the scene. Now, I know a lot of you might be thinking that his proportions look weird, and that's because they do. That's because a miniature is best done with larger head, hands, and feet, and a thicker torso than reality, because it's easier to paint, it's easier to see the details from arm's length, and it's more sturdy when printed, really. So what we're going to do first, we're going to races. One advantage of me bringing this in Daz Studio is that I can just grab, say, a Hobgoblin dial and dial it up, and the bones change in proportion. And it's most obvious on this Type 2 Reptilian. You can see the bones moving to match his digitigrade stance. But, fortunately, I have a dial for gnomes, which is not to be confused with a dial for halflings. So I'm going to start with this gnome. This gnome will be a bard. We can have him have a lute. We can have him have almost anything we can think of. I got a lute and a harp ready, is the deal. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead. We are not going to put on the tunic on him because he's going to be wearing a doublet. And the doublets don't go as deep. Okay? However, we still need to go ahead and give him his prop. Let's go ahead and put the lute in his left hand. AKL lute left hand. Select him first so that the hand poses. And there we go. And I'm thinking we might want to shrink the lute. Before we do, let's go to left side. And hit the bones. Yeah, we're gonna definitely need to move the center so that when we shrink the lute it doesn't, you know, go nuts. Back view. Almost. There. Okay. Now perspective. And parameters, and we're going to scale it down just a bit to better fit our gnome. And then we're going to edit object, geometry, add push modifier. Now, that push modifier makes it too fat. We don't want a fat lute. This is not an MMO. So we're going to go back here to mesh offset, and we're going to dial this down just a little bit. We just wanted enough to make it a little bit easier to print. Yeah, there we go. You still got the strings, you still got the hole, and you still got the shape. It's just that now, you know, it's scaled to fit the gnome. Now, before we do this, there's one thing I realized I have to do. Let's go back to races and turn that gnome back down to 0. We're going to a different program. Because I realized for him to be a real true bard, he needs a hat. Yep, he needs a hat. So we're going to there, 3D Studio Max. We're going to make him a hat. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to start off with a cylinder. And we're going to kind of just put it vaguely in the vague head shape area and go up a little. And we're going to move it to X0 so it's perpendicular, or symmetrical. Raise it up to his ear level. Zoom in. And this is where we're going to start tweaking a few things. First things first, we need it to have that so that we have geometry to work with up top. Then we need to reduce the number of height segments to 2. And then we need to reduce the size to 10. Now, we're going to go ahead and convert it to editable poly, and we're going to use what's called an FFD box. And what this does, this deforms in a rather unusual way compared to the usual deformers. And we're going to shrink it in a bit, and then in a bit this way. Oh, no, we're going to select all of them. No. Yeah, we're going to select all of them to shrink in this way. Collapse all, and you've noticed that it's not fitting him properly, so we're going to go ahead and move it forward a bit. And it's too tight on the head there, so we're going to expand it out a little. Now we're going to grab this right here, and we're going to move it down. The reason being is that's going to be our brim. Now we're going to take these and we're going to shrink them a little, just a little, and we're going to select one edge, ring, and then convert our selection to polygon selection. Okay, now we extrude. I don't like that direction. We're going to extrude by local normal. When we zoom in, we don't want 10 millimeters. That's good enough. No, I hit the control or the right click with my left finger. Okay, now we're going to do something else. We're going to do what's called a slice plane. And what this is going to do, this is going to let us have an edge here, because this side of the brim is going to go up. Slice. Did it work? Yes, it did. And then one more here. slice. Now, we're going to go ahead and select these. We're going to rotate a little bit over 90 degrees and bring it up. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to add smooth just to make it look better. Most of the rest of the manipulation of the brim will be done in ZBrush. And then we're going to add in a box that will be sculpted into the shape of a feather. So we're going to stick it here. Make it that thick. And we're going to rotate it. And we're going to move it up a little. Over. And we're going to make sure that its width, which is the longest one, has 3 segments. No, let's make it 4. Editable poly. Now, we select these. Shrink them down in only 2 axes. We're going to pull it back in there. We're going to move this specific vertex. Then we're going to take these, we're going to shrink them down in only 2 axes and put it there. Now, like I said, this is just preliminary. Now, we are going to go ahead, gonna select those, select these, ring and not shrink. We're going to connect with 2 segments and make it pretty wide so that it keeps its thickness. And then mesh smooth. Collapse all. Actually, we need to do one other thing. We need to rotate it slightly that way. And dig it in. Yeah. Now this, we're going to need to select here and here. And loop. And then what we're going to do is we're going to chamfer these at 0.01. And this gives us a hard edge. You can see it hardened up in here, but we still have a loose one on the brim. We're going to use a different method to take care of that. We want a relatively soft brim, so we're going to connect and we're going to raise it up, but not quite so close. About there. There. Now, when we hit mesh smooth, yeah, and again, most of the sculpting on this hat, especially moving the brim, will be done in ZBrush. But that's the basic shape of our hat that we're going to give our bard. So we select them, file, export. Actually, let's give it another layer of mesh smooth because, yeah. File. You can't see what I'm doing here. I'm exporting it to the directory for my meshes. I'm having to navigate to the broadcast directory. VJ. No, I need to put this in the props directory. Yeah. And this is going to be fancy hat. Export. Done. I then delete it. I then come back here and I go back to Dev Studio. So here in Dev Studio, I go ahead and file, import. And it's already importing from that particular place, so I just double click on Fancy Hat. Now you can't see it at first because of a weirdness from 3ds Max. change the color to white, change the ambient color to black, and change the opacity strength to 100. We want it 100%. Now, I go back to my scene. I parent it to the head, which... Fancy hat. I drag up top of the head. And now, when I add in the gnome proportions... Okay, I think we need to make the hat just a little bit bigger, because his head is a different shape from the humans. Let's get over a little... Oh, too much. And then drop it down just a little. Oh. Yeah, that's about right. And there we have our fancy hat on our gnome. Now, is anyone watching? And if you are, do you have any ideas for what we can do for a pose for this guy? Because pose is an extremely important aspect. You know, you really gotta get everything ready. Excuse me. Looks like there's nobody watching, as usual. So I'm just going to go ahead and pose him how I want to pose him. Let's see. It's got to be something rather either dashing or goofy that he thinks is dashing, or something who's just playing. But as skinny as he, as short-limbed as he is, it'd be difficult to make him actually playing. Actually, let's go ahead and do one other thing here. Let's bring it forward a little bit. Yeah. He could be rocking out, or oh, let's give him a rapier. Rapier in his right hand. There we go. Now notice that rapier is way too big for him. Yeah. Let's go ahead and delete it. Let's use instead something slightly shorter. Let's call it let's use a backsword, which is still too big. Okay, we'll use a cutlass. Or cutlass right hand. There we go. It's a bit shorter and fatter, but, you know, that's how things go. He's a little bit shorter and fatter than the average. So he'll be just... Excuse me, pardon my sinuses. Okay, expand from selected. Bing! Alright. Now all of his body parts are selectable all the way down to his dainty toes. We're not going to adjust his eyebrows, well, yeah, we are, because I didn't do that. Okay. First things first, let's go ahead and affect his facial expression. Let's... too much? Yeah. We're going to make him smile in ZBrush. And then just kind of, let's see. Pardon me while I stand and adjust and to see where my legs go for this pose. Okay, so... Alright. Not a lot of hip movement other than rotation for this one. So let's just make it one bend forward, a little bit side to side. And we're going to twist his thigh a little. Bend his leg back. And then bend it forward. We'll deal with getting the feet flat after we do this other one. Bend it back a bit, side to side. And we're going to go to the front. Front view. Now, first things first. Let's get this foot parallel. So this is our anchor foot. This is the one that we're basing our pose on. I'm going to go side to side a little. And then a little bit more bend. That's about right. We're now going to move over to this foot. And this one also needs to bend and go side to side. But it also needs to twist a little. Now, the next thing we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and double check to make sure that our feet are where they need to be. Okay, this one. Alright, let's go ahead and select this. We're going to grab here. Alright, and then we're going to bend. And side to side. And then we're just going to go ahead and side to side this one. Go back to the front view. And what we're going to do is we're going to, let's do a bit more side to side on this leg. Oh, whoops. That happens if I slip off the plus sign and click on the actual. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pin translation and pin rotation. Pin translation, pin rotation. I'm going to select the hip. I'm going to bring it down and to the side, and then we're going to twist. Then we're going to go ahead and unpin all. And we're going to start, and we're going to drop to the floor. Now this foot needs to, oh, too far. Just unbend just a little. Oh, go up just a little. Drop and it hits the ground. This foot is too far from the side, so we unside to side it a little. And we a little bit more down now. Okay, so now we go back. Perspective view. Now, should he have his lute raised, or should he have his sword raised? Because that's the big question. pardon me for the sinuses again. Okay, lute raised or sword raised? And hello, Baloo! Like I just said, for this Gnome Bard, should he have his lute in the air with his sword down here, or his sword in the air with his lute down here? The lute raised. Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and go to that. One of the first things we're going to do, the abdomen is going to go to that side. Twist it a bit. Bend it back just a little. And then we go to the chest. We're going to bend forward again. Twist it even more. And go the opposite side. Like I said, he's going to be smiling when we sculpt. Alright, we're going to twist the shoulder. The collar, actually. We're then going to unbend here. Raise up here and twist it like that. Then we're going to bend the arm. Twist it. And then grab him here. We're going to lower his arm a bit. Twist. And bend his forearm. And here we have our Gnome Bard in his basic pose. We're going to rotate him on the y-axis a bit to center him up a little for sculpting. Okay, now we're going to hide his fancy hat. Well, let's hide his lute. We're going to hide his cutlass. We're going to hide his fancy hat. And we have nothing but a gnome here. We're going to file, export, Gnome Bardy, also known as Gnome Body. Now we're going to make these visible again and hide the male. And we're going to file, export, Gnome Bard props. Accept. Yeah, Baloo, you actually missed me making that fancy little hat. Like I said, I'm going to be doing some of the detailing in ZBrush. And speaking of ZBrush, well, guess what time it is? Yes, that's right. Bing! Time for ZBrush. So we go ahead, we're going to import the Gnome Bardy. Yeah, there he is. Yes, that's him. That's him, all right. That's the one, officer. That's the one that just rocked too hard for me to be able to sleep. We're going to append a new subtool. And we're going to import on that subtool the Gnome Bard props. He has his lute. He has his cutlass, and he has his fancy sword. And we're going to hide that one because we just need to do a lot of work on the body today because there's not much else. One of the things we're going to do real quick, we're going to smooth out the chest area a good bit more than usual, simply because this is a doublet, not a tunic. They're a good bit more form-fitting. Now, I also need to remember to open up stroke and turn off lazy mouse. And trim this down quite a bit, because I got to pull out the whole chest now. Oh, too much. There we go. You probably might be able to hear my printer going. I'm actually printing, and the same thing goes here. I'm actually printing one of my orcs. Now, the next, we really should be getting out the tablet for the rest of this. So, here I go, again, on my own. Going down the only road I've ever known. Yeah, my voice is horrible. Deal with it. And I need to kind of fix that crotch. So one of the first things we're going to do, first we're going to increase the smooth. I'm going to just smooth out the whole crotch area. And then draw on a crotch. We are not, sadly, going to give him the classic cod piece from the era that the rest of his clothing is from, because that would be just too wrong. And while there might be some gnome fanciers out there who are complaining, I'd be glad I gave him a bulge at all. Yeah. I'm sitting here trying to just tweak up some of the anatomy before we go into sculpting on the clothing. Okay, frame. Need to zoom out a little. Oh, not zoom out, but smooth out a little bit on this leg. We also need to smooth out some on the outer legs because it's starting to be a bit extreme, and we don't want that. He's not a. Yeah, he never skips leg day, but we don't want him to look like a mutant. Okay, now. That's our basic smoothing done. We're going to go ahead and, while we're in here, we're going to affect some of his facial expression. We're going to use the Move Topological brush to give him a bit more of a smile. And then out a little bit. Yeah, he does look a little more goblin-y than. And then we're gonna grab up here and raise it. Raise his brows all the way into his hat. That's good enough. And with his hat on. Yeah, there we go. Alright, let me frame back out. Looks a lot happier now, doesn't he? Going into geometry, and we're going to subdivide a few times until he's a good bit more detailed. And then we're going to Dynamesh at 768. And a blur of 0. Dynamesh! Dynamesh. Oops, I forgot one thing. Z. I gotta go in here and use the smoothing brush to bring his mouth back into shape. I do that from all the way down here, because it's right now would need supports on the inside of the mouth, which we don't want. Okay. We want it to be just a hint of a depression where the open mouth is. We don't want it to be this huge gaping maw. Okay, now we subdivide for delete lower, frame out, and Dynamax with a resolution of 768 and a blur of 0. Sorry. Okay, I-Force, what do you want me to make bigger? The crotch bulge? No. No, thank you. I don't plan on making gnome porn. Okay, now that we're in this basic shape, one thing that we're going to do that I just noticed that I forgot because I'm a doofus. Yes, you heard it right. I am a doofus. I need to fill in this area right here. Just a little bit. Just very faint. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is shrink the mouse back down. No, and that's too much. About there. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to use masking to give him mid-thigh boots. Yes, mid-thigh boots. Because that was a thing. Cavaliers and all that. Unfortunately, on a gnome, they're so short that mid-thigh boots are pretty much thigh-high boots. One thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go in and clean up some of the extra on the calf. And we've got to do that with a much smaller brush. Oops, and I noticed I just missed a piece, or erased a piece in the wrong spot. I guess I'm going to have to go back in with a much larger brush on that area. Now, let's move this back. Yeah. So let's go ahead and shrink the brush. Shrink the brush. It's not like Kissy Girl. Let me hide the feet so I can see what I'm doing here. Yes, that's the agony of defeat. You can't see what you're doing on the inner calf, inner thigh. Under thigh. Not to be confused with thunder thighs, which is a rather insulting phrase. Yes, it is a rather insulting phrase. Shouldn't use it. Unless we're talking about Thor's leg day. Okay, there we go. So, and I don't know about you, but I'm not going to talk about Thor's leg day. Zoom out. It's going to clean that up just a little. Make everything visible. Alright. Now one last thing to do, and that's clean this up. Next thing we do is we go to Subtool. Subtools. Not submarines, it's a subtool. And we're going to go make that thickness 0.03. 0.03, not 0.036, thank you. Extract. And accept. We're going to draw in the middle of the screen so that it unmasks that. And then we're going to draw in the middle of the screen because, oh look, he's still masked. We don't want that. Who was that masked thigh? Alright, frame. Now we're going back to geometry, and we're going to Dynamesh at 256, but we're keeping the blur at 2. Okay, now frame in on him. And what we're going to do next, we're going to make the mouse a lot bigger. And if you'll hold on just a second, I need a bit of soda. We're going to pull out the bottoms of those because those are cuffs. So let's go ahead, and we're going to use the move topological. We want to be just enough to pull out where we are. We need to make it bigger. Yeah. Pull it out some so it's visible. Yeah, so it's nicely wrinkled. Well, it'll be even more nicely wrinkled when we're done, but yeah. And we grab here and we pull it out. We grab here and we pull it out. Rotate a little. Grab here and we pull it out. Grab here and we pull it out and down a little bit because it is in the front. Okay, and that is our, those we're going to divide them a couple times until they're a reasonable amount for the geometry we're dealing with. And we're going back to him. The next thing is we need to do the bottom of the doublet. Actually, let's make it the whole of the doublet. Then we're going to do his sleeves. And his sleeves are going to be poofy. Okay. What we're going to do is we're first going to do a belt. And this belt is going to be pretty simple. It's just, you know, just wrap it all the way around. We're going to do a buckle later. That'll come much later. Okay. And because it's going to be over the doublet, we're going to extract it at 0.4. 0.04. Extract, accept, unmask, unmask, and now we go to geometry and Dynamesh it at 256. We don't need to do anything else to it because it's just a band around the waist. But now we've got to do the doublet bits. Yeah, the bits and bobs, you know, what do you like that? Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about make that 0.02. Anyway, first things first. We're going to start up here. Well, make it smaller. We're going to start up here. Drop down to just above crotch level. And come out. Drop down to just above crotch level and come out. We're going to do the same thing on the back. Come. And and then just kind of connect these. We're then going to go ahead and add on a lot more up here, because it's going to be coming out from under the belt, but we also need to clean off the bottom edge, make it sharp. So now we've done that, we're going to start here and just kind of clean off the bottom corner to make it a sharp edge. The same thing on the Botox, not to be confused with Botox, which is, you know, for either migraines or making your face freeze the way it is. Can you imagine someone pulling a prank where... Alright, let's go ahead and erase that. Erase that. But can you imagine, yeah.
If you keep doing that face, your face will freeze like that.
And they come in and, you know, hit them with Botox while their face is like that. Yeah. All right, now we're going to change that. Going to go ahead and extract it. Accept. Unmask. Unmask. And now we're going to Dynamesh 256. That helps keep our edges kind of sharp. And before we do anything, before we hit that darn subdivide button, we're going to smooth off the top a bit. But it's a lot easier right now. And a lot down here. You see, the problem is, if we just let the belt hide the seam, it'll still be clearly obvious that this bottom seam is not part of the figure, or it'll look more like a skirt than the bottom of a shirt or vest, which is really what a doublet is an exaggerated vest shirt. Okay, so we go ahead and smooth this in. And now I'm going to increase the size of the brush and do it all the way around again, a lot closer this time. This will help blend it in and make it look more like it's part of his outfit, and not, again, like I said, not a skirt he's wearing. Move around and detail. And smooth it just a little here. Okay, now we're going to subdivide it a couple times. Delete lower and make the belt visible. Yeah, that works a lot better. Now the thing is, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use the move top. Oh, we got move topological selected. We're going to grab down here. We're going to pull out just a little so it becomes a bit more obvious. Same thing on the back. Now, like I said, if you can hear my 3D printer going, I'm actually printing the last of my orc horde for my personal use. Yes. I recently got the sergeant painted, everything except for the skull and his shield. I still have to paint that and maybe put some gloss coat on his demon belly plate to make it look like lacquer instead of, you know, paint or weirdness. Okay. That's that. Now we do his collar and his shoulders. Now, a doublet actually covered a good bit of the deltoid area, which is why we're going to go kind of just a little bit past middle on that when we make his the top edge. They also kind of went pretty tightly underneath, which means we're going to go ahead and have to clean that up a good bit. Now, start here. And clean that up. Okay, now let's just pull it upside down so it'd be easier to clean the inside of the arm and shrink it down a little. Up to here. Clean. And then shrink it down a good bit. And clean off down here. I see a spot I'm going to have to touch up. But yeah. Now, doublets were not a one-piece garment. It's not like a tunic or a tabard. They actually had a seam up the middle that was held together with either frog closures or buttons. There. So the next thing we're going to do is add on his collar. His collar is going to be just pretty much... once again, I'm going to... Oh. Kind of high on the neck, but not too high. It's almost V-shaped, but not quite. And then what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and fill in this gap. We can afford to. We can smooth in the bottom edges quite a bit easily. And it'll also help emphasize a more heroic body type, even for a gnome. Yeah. Okay, hide the belt. Hide the... that. And frame out. And we go to geometry. Or we go down here to extract. And extract. Accept. Draw. Come up here and draw to get rid of the masking. Go back down. And Dynamesh 256. Dynamesh. Ding, ding, ding. Sounds like the name of a superhero, don't it? Yeah, now we're going to zoom in, and we're going to make the mouse a lot bigger. And we are going to smooth in the bottom of this doublet. Worst comes to worst, we're going to end up using the move topological to blend it in a bit better. But either way, frame. Okay, now what we're going to do, we're going to hide everything except for these two bits. We're going back to our, gotta go back to here. I forgot to increase its polygon count. We're going to select our big guy, and we're going to merge down, and then merge down. Oh, I see one thing I got to do real quick. Small it. Let's go ahead and smooth this a little. It's got a little bit of a zigzag pattern. Okay, so I got some over here too. Just a bit. It's kind of akin to a fingerprint on a sculpted miniature. Now we're going to go to geometry. We're going to zoom in on the face, and we're going to use slash. We're going to use slash to emphasize those eyes. We are not going to be pushing it at 70, and we are also not going to be doing it with lazy mouse on. We're going to shrink the mouse, shrink the cursor rather, and draw around the eye, just to emphasize the edge of the eye. And same thing over on this side. Okay, now we frame out, and we're going to Dynamesh. And did it accept? We'll know when we pull in. Yes, it did. So now we make our mouse big, about that big. And we're going to use the mouse and not the stylus, because the mouse, when you use it instead of the stylus and the tablet, is always at 100% for what you're doing. In this case, smoothing. If you've got something you just need to do a lot of, make sure it's dark, you use the mouse instead of the stylus. It's not as accurate really and truly, but it's much more. This is the shotgun. The mouse is the sniper rifle. Yeah, there we go. Now frame out. And just to show you, we turn the belt back on, and it's right in place. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw on our closures. And what we're going to do for this, I'm going to shrink the mouse. I'm going to go up to lazy mouse, and for the this only, I'm going to turn on lazy mouse, and what we're going to do is we're going to start down here, then we're going to masking, and we're going to shrink the mask a little. That's just so we can see that what's there. And we're going to draw on little baubles. And to do that, we're going to use the layer brush. Layer. Make the mouse bigger. Okay, we're going to make sure we have lazy mouse turned off. Mirror. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we're going to undo that simply because we don't need it anymore. We just using that for placing. Now we're going to use inflate. We're going to inflate each of these just a little. Make them look more like buttons and less like plateaus. Okay. Now we're going to shrink down inflate. We're going to increase its strength to make sure that it's not okay, it's not on lazy mouse. And we're going to draw little cord between each. Then we're going to slash. And we're going to start from here just to make sure we're doing it right. We're going to increase it just a little bit and increase the size. There. 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 And there. Now when we put on our belt, yeah, and our boots, and our hat, okay, that is a doublet. Now we need to hide the props. And we're going to go for the hands now, or the upper arms, really. Now what we're going to do, we're going to make the mouse bigger again. Actually, let's do this. Let's do it the easy way. We're just going to select that. No, because I need to come back. Come to here. Yeah. Select that much. And then for the arm, for this arm, first I need to select that. Then I need to select and now I'm going to clean it up with a mouse. Okay, so I need to turn off the lazy mouse on that. I frame out and I extract at point 2. Yeah. Extract. Accept. Draw. Whoop. Too high. Draw. And go down to these guys again. We're going to dynamesh them at 128. Because we want to make certain that we can smooth in the bottom ends of these pretty quickly. Because they'll need it. I was hitting the wrong button. Okay. Now let's smooth this in. That was actually a mistake that I just took advantage of. I didn't mean it to suddenly pop like the image to pop like that. You did not have a sudden lag bubble. Yeah. Okay. Frame out. And now we're going to divide it a couple times. Go back to our buddy subtool and merge down because of what I'm going to have to do next. Merge down. And then Dynamesh. Okay, we zoom in. And we're going to go ahead and smooth out the seam area, and also right here while we can, because that's not very neat. Okay, up right there. Yeah, there we go. Did I miss? Yes, I missed right in here. Now we're going to where this sleeve is, and this sleeve's a lot easier to deal with since his arm is mostly straight. Now, one of the first things we're going to do next is check to see if anyone else has joined. Toadstool, I have a Discord, a YouTube channel that shows this being rebroadcast, and a Thingiverse page. For my broadcasts, I do not have any other social media. Sorry. Okay. Now we need to go back in. Now what we're going to do is we're going to draw in with slash, shrink it just a little, we're going to draw in the end of the cuff. Right about here. And just a little bit of smoothing on the bottom end. Try and emphasize that that cuff is a little bit higher up than the rest. Move it around. Alright, Shinji, come on. Come here. Good girl. Yes, you did see right. My cat obeys snap commands. And we're going to do it on the other arm. And what we're doing, basically we're making this the kind of the collars for the, or the cuffs rather, for the sleeves. Because the sleeves will get poofy here in a minute. And we want that poof to end at the cuffs, because that's where it ended. And just like I said, just a little bit of there we go. I really need to turn on timestamps so I can see when people post. Yeah, that would help, wouldn't it? Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use inflate. And I'm going to inflate. Oh, way too powerful. I'm going to inflate most of this sleeve. Try and smooth it out. Make it really baggy. Oh. Make it really baggy down here. Then I'm going to put on basic wrinkles after I do the bag. Okay. That should be nicely baggy. Okay. Soda time. Yay. Actually, that looks looking pretty good as it is. Let's go ahead and just switch over to slash. And first things first, we're gonna make it not quite as intense. Zoom in. Now, the first things we're going to do is we're going to draw in a couple of the wrinkles from, well, let's make this a lot smaller, and a couple of the wrinkles from the bend in this arm. And then always remember with wrinkles, it's the bottom. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw in some very deep and occasionally long divots a bit away from where the wrist is, and some lighter ones that go all the way to it. Then I'm going to draw down and around and smooth them a little. down and around, and then smooth it just a little. Reason for this is that these are compression wrinkles. That means that these wrinkles come mostly from being compressed. And as I said before, most of your wrinkle comes at the bottom of the fold. So yeah, they're looking pretty good. And then just one last major one. Okay. That's that. See how nice that sleeve is already looking? It's a matter of just studying the basic wrinkle types. Let's zoom this one down here. Whereas one below it is going to go a little bit further. Smooth the ends. This one's not going to go as far. Let's go ahead and add one here. And this one is going to go pretty distance and smooth. And then one here. One coming down kind of like that. And then we add in our spacer wrinkles. And this is basically just to make sure, kind of emphasize that yes, these are wrinkles and not just anything else. And also help emphasize that wrinkles do zigzags. Now, in case you're wondering why I haven't changed from Z-add to Z-sub, I'm still doing Z-add. It's because when you hold down Alt, it does the in or out opposite depending on which one you've been using. And when you hold down Shift, no matter what brush you're using, it does the smooth. That's why I can do these smoothings without having to worry about it. Okay, now, frame. Those sleeves are looking good. In fact, it's now time. He's done except for one thing. I want to do one little strand of hair coming out from behind the hat. So, we're going to zoom in. Shrink that just a little bit. No, make it a little bit bigger. And we're going to draw on here. And we're going to erase. Oh. Erase here. Because we're going to end up dragging it down. And we're going to extract it at 3. 0.03. Extract, accept, draw here, Go to Dynamesh. Dynamesh it at 128. And we're going to move topological. Yes. Move topological. It is really logical. Let me make sure that it's going to grab a whole lot of it. And since this is a move, we don't really need the tablet. Okay. Now we're going to zoom out. I'm going to make the parts visible. Okay, I don't really need to do any major okay. Now we're going to inflate the sides. And underneath down here. Enough to kind of bring it almost to the ears. Now we need to redynamesh that because we're starting to lose detail in the edges. So we're going to subdivide it a couple times and dynamesh it. Okay. Now I'm going to use the move tool to kind of bring it over back towards this ear. And towards this ear. And then in a little bit because it's a little bit too far out. There we go. That's a decent hair sticking out from under there. Well, let's bring this up until it's hidden in there. Yeah, there we go. Now, we're going to subdivide it a couple times. That's one too many. Delete lower, delete higher. Subtool, hide the hat and hair. Alright, and we're going to break open slash. Once again, yay, slash. Maker of hair and wrinkles. We're going to draw down the locks. And then we're going to use Alt to draw on the edges of these locks. Way too much. So we need to drop the intensity quite a bit. Yeah. We And when we turn the hair back on, the hat back on, there we go. Okay. Now we're going to take the Bard props, and this is where we're going to get going. We're going to divide it a few times, and then we're going to okay. We're going to hide the lute and the sword. And then everything else. Frame, zoom out. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to tweak the overall geometry with the move tool. Yay. And yes, we are using move topological for this. I want it to be much bigger. Now one thing that happens is these are usually bent forward a little bit. And even more so backwards. This side's going to come up just a little. Not as much as the folded side, but just a little. And the next thing is there's usually a bit of a divide in the front center. Let's make it about as big as that. Yeah. And we're going to come down. Yeah, there we go. And now we're going to hide this because the next thing is our feather. Now, if this was a normal feather for FDM, what I would do is I would take, the standard brush here, go to brush, auto masking, and turn back face masking off. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw on the quill part. Make sure it's on pretty high, and I'm going to start down here, and I'm going to actually, I think this is the time I do want lazy mouse on. Lazy radius of about there. Have to increase the size. Alright, so. And then I hit number 1 to bring it out a bit more. This is the level of detail we probably won't see in a FDM print. Then I'm going to take the slash brush again. I'm going to increase the intensity and shrink the size. And I'm just going to sit there, make sure I've got backface masking on. Nope, not intense enough, or not large enough. Or okay. Just draw on these little, I hate it when it does that, just automatically saving in progress. I don't need the auto save, but I haven't bothered turning it off yet. Okay. Now we go underneath. We can see where it is. And we draw on the divisors here. And the purpose of this is to make sure we get them in the same spot on the opposite side. It'll also help shape the outside edge of the feather. And then we just go ahead and draw out the other side. These inner ones I really don't need to do, but it's better just to do it just for, at the very least, for practice while I'm working with y'all. Okay, and then out here, out to here, out to here. Oh, a little off. What am I hitting? There. And no, I don't need that S curve there. Okay. Now we make the rest of the hat visible. Frame out. And let's make the rest of the thing visible. And this is our Gnome Bard. He already looks kind of drunk. Wouldn't you agree? So, what we need to do, we need to go ahead, select him, and we need to merge down a whole 9 yards. And then we need to append and import a base. And now that we've got our base, first thing we do is we subdivide it a couple times to make sure that it's it. Oh, and then we offset it to fit properly. In this case, we need to offset on the Y, not the X. And that should do it. That gives us a decent amount of foot while also having it firmly within the base. Now, when we go up top, we frame, actually, let me go ahead and frame. Yeah, it's already pretty centered. Let's see. We can go forward a little. Yeah, we can go forward a little. So we go to our Z-axis instead of our Y. And go forward. Just a bit, so that he's centered on the base, not necessarily his feet. That's a bit too far. There we go. And we frame out once again, zoom out, and actually, come on. And we merge down. Frame, and here we go. And we go to geometry, and we Dynamesh one last time. It is 7:30, by the way. By the way, this does mean that I can now put this up. I don't need it anymore today for this broadcast. Okay, and we are now at 2.204 million. Everything is one solid piece. 2.204 million is too much for most slicers. So we are going to Z plug in Decimation Master and clicking the 35k point button. This ends up with 35,000 vertexes and roughly 70,000 polygons. And now it's computing. Then it will be saving the file. No, that didn't work. So we need to go ahead and just do another Dynamesh real quick. And try it one more time. 35k. Analyzing mesh. Forgot to turn that off. Read mesh file, analyzing mesh. 5, 4. Dang it. No, fuzz butt. Get your claw out of my jeans. No, little buddy. Not till after the broadcast. Then you can come up and snuggle. See? She's behaving. Why can't you? No, fuzzbutt. Okay. Turn off the Dynamesh. Let's try one thing to give a very faint, very, very faint mark. Just to note that it was altered. Actually, it's right here. Yeah. Now let's try it. 760. There we go. And, oh wait, while we're here, let's smooth out the bottom of this lute. Yeah. Alright, now frame, zoom out a little, and Z plug in 35k. Yeah, this is better. It usually takes a little. Do you mind? No. Down you go, little buddy. Come on, let me finish the broadcast. Yeah, that's a much more realistic decimation time. see what we got. We got reordering, writing file to disk, no fuzz, no reading the file, and we are at 69,892,000 polygons, or 69,892 polygons, 34,914 vertexes. So now we export this. This goes to Broadcast Miniatures, new Gnome Bard figure. You could almost replace that lute with a jug of wine and he'd be ready. Okay, and as you can see, you see all the detail, but when we zoom in, you can also see all the polygons, because he's not that super high res anymore. We got our feather, we got our hair, we got our sword, our lute, our doublet. Yeah, that should do well. It will probably need an it probably won't completely show all the detail on FDM. That's tiny. This is super tiny. But it will show on a resin printer. Alright. Let's go ahead and head back to the main camera. Now it is 7:40 here in Memphis, Tennessee. Yep. Help me information, get me in Memphis, Tennessee. A cat's coming out the window. Into my lap. Oh, can't you see? Give me squishy, 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 squishies. Yes, I have an overly affectionate cat. I have a couple, actually. She's usually quite affectionate, except when she's sleeping. This is her nap time. Yeah. No, you can't go up there and bother her, Fuzzball. In fact, you gotta go down. I'll be coming out. I'll let you play here in just about 10 minutes. Alright, Fuzz? Yeah, good boy. Oh, and so that was our Gnome Bard. When next I broadcast, you'll see me have up on the sheet that I the thingy here. There will be right up there a little green dot under Gnome and Bard. So I'm going to go ahead now, and this is probably going to be time for me to say goodbye. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my hand up right here, and I'm going to watch on the screen, right in there, you know. And when I see my hand go to a 1, not from doing that, but actually counting down, I'm going to end the broadcast. So that's going to be a 5, a 4, a 3, a 2, a 1. Lag, lag, lag. How much lag do I got? Oh, there I go with the 4, and the 3, and the 2, and the 1. Bye.